I tried beating Terraria, but every boss we kill drops completely random loot, meaning that the Eye of Cthulhu can drop anything from a garbage slime staff to endgame armor. Will I be able to defeat the Squid Man, or will I never get any good loot and give up? Well, let's find out. I started off by chopping down trees, and our first goal was to get the Eye of Cthulhu summoned in order to fight our first boss as fast as possible. It's key for us to challenge as many bosses as we can, because that is our surefire way to get absolutely overpowered weapons and armor. I picked up some lead that was on the surface of the world and continued over to the left. I found myself a desert biome. I looted the chest there, but before I could make it out, I died. I went over to the right side of the world and went down an ice cave. I almost died to an ice slime, but I pulled the sickest Terraria plays of all time, being the best Terraria player, of course, and I managed to escape, only to die to another ice slime that was far weaker. I went over to the corruption, chucked some bombs at the corruption orbs, and got myself a musket. This is our first decent weapon, and thank God we got this, so we can now go and challenge the Eye of Cthulhu. I picked myself up some life crystals and came back to spawn in order to build myself an NPC house. I built enough houses to ensure that every single NPC I wanted would spawn in, and after this, I went over to the right side of the world. I stumbled upon a desert pyramid and I found a magic carpet. I picked it up and ventured on. I went over to the left to explore the jungle, but upon going further, I actually found a meteor. Since I didn't have a pickaxe that could mine up meteorite, I used my bombs to explode as much as I could, and using this meteorite, I crafted myself a full set of meteorite armor and a space gun. Upon nightfall, I summoned in the Eye of Cthulhu and challenged our very first boss. Upon killing it, we were absolutely overwhelmed by items, but this is just the very start of our journey. We can't absolutely guarantee good loot every time, but from the Eye of Cthulhu, we actually managed to get ourselves a vortex breastplate, which is a decently good piece of armor. Apart from this, the Eye of Cthulhu didn't really drop anything good, so we had to move on to our next boss. I ventured over to the corruption, broke the corruption orbs using my bombs, and challenged the Eater of Worlds. We put up a decent fight with him. I was using the space gun the entire time, and this fight was an absolute piece of cake. Upon killing him, I was pretty disappointed because we didn't really get any good weapons, but we did get ourselves a instant MoonLord summon, the Clantaminator, and a set of wings, meaning that we're gonna have the pretty overpowered ability of flight in early game Terraria. You know what, I'm really not complaining. Still would have been nice to get a weapon though, okay? After the defeat of the Eater of Worlds, I wasted no time whatsoever, crafted myself a nightmare pickaxe, and started making myself a elevator. We're gonna challenge the Wall of Flesh as fast as we can to get into hard mode. I picked up some hellstone, crafted it into bars, made myself the fiery greatsword along with the molten pickaxe, and I also got a guide voodoo doll. We essentially killed like 20 birds with one stone. We're making progress extremely fast, and I can feel that the Wall of Flesh is starting to get a little scared. After this, I went to explore the caverns to get myself max HP, and once I got enough life crystals to get myself to 400 HP, I challenged the Eye of Cthulhu a couple more times in order to get better weapons. Luckily, we got a shadow flame knife and a palladium sword, giving us some fairly decent weapons to take on the Wall of Flesh. Since I already had the guide voodoo doll, I made my way down to the underworld, chucked the guide voodoo doll into the lava, and summoned in the Wall of Flesh. I absolutely decimated this boss using the shadow flame knife, and upon killing it, I got myself a stardust hamaxe, a snowball cannon, and a pair of stardust wings. Once I came back to the surface, I actually got invaded by goblins. Using my shadow flame knife, I fought them off, and then proceeded to make my way over to the corruption in order to break demon altars. I blessed my world with cobalt, mithril, and adamantite, and after this, I made my way down to the caverns in order to get myself more cobalt. After this was done, I crafted myself a cobalt pickaxe, later proceeded to make myself a mithril pickaxe, and lastly, I came back to spawn and started building more NPC houses. After this was done, I made my way back down to the caverns, got myself enough adamantite to craft myself armor, and in search for better weapons, I decided to fight the Wall of Flesh once more. I chucked the guide voodoo doll into the lava, and upon defeating the Wall of Flesh, I actually managed to get a weapon that was gonna carry me through a lot of the upcoming boss fights. I managed to get a Christmas tree sword, which is going to be perfect for the mechanical bosses, so I'm happy with that. After this, I went to the underground corruption biome in order to farm souls of night, and after that was done, I crafted myself the mechanical worm. I summoned in the destroyer and started spamming it with my Christmas tree sword. This boss managed to put up a fight, managing to take out a decent amount of my health once in a while, but as you know, I am the greatest Terraria player of all time without a sliver of a doubt, so I took out the destroyer, and he actually managed to drop me a Wall of Flesh treasure bag. I tried to use the demon heart in order to get another accessory slot, but since this world was not in expert mode, this did not work, and I got absolutely bamboozled. What a tragic day it is to be Boio. Anyways, after this, I built some NPC prisons, and then went to farm out Souls of Light. After getting enough Souls of Light, I made my way back to spawn, crafted myself the mechanical skull, and summoned in Skeletron Prime. Using a hallowed repeater and the Christmas tree sword, I absolutely shredded through this boss's health. We ended up killing Skeletron Prime, and he actually dropped us some pretty interesting loot. And what I mean by interesting is he dropped us a mechanical skull. I don't know what type of paradox this is, but you know, I was expecting to get a good weapon, but all he dropped me was essentially another summon for Skeletron Prime. Like, are you joking? What is my luck? I'm literally, oh my, this game. Anyways, after this, I summoned in the twins and started taking them out using my Shadow Flame knife and my hallowed repeater. We took out Spasmatism first, and this was absolutely no challenge, but before we could kill the second twin, the sun rose above the horizon and the mechanical eyeball fleed before we could take it out. While waiting for nighttime to come around, I summoned in the Frost Legion just for fun. Christmas spirit, right? Merry Christmas, everyone. And once again fought the twins. Just as last time, I decided to take on Spasmatism first, and Retinazer followed very soon after. Upon killing the twins, I got myself a Betsy and a Golem treasure bag. The Betsy bag gave me a bow, which was actually pretty good, but the Golem treasure bag ended up giving me a stinger, which I'm gonna be honest with you, is an absolutely awful weapon. Since all three mechanical bosses are dead, we can now start looking for Plantera's bulb. I decided to fight Skeletron Prime once more in hopes of better armor, but apparently it's just fate for my wishes to never come true. I got myself a chlorophyte sword and solar wings. You know what, this would be pretty decent if I didn't already have Stardust wings and the Christmas tree sword, but I guess thank you, Skeletron, you gave me something worthwhile. At least it wasn't like 10 pieces of dirt, that would have been bad. I went over to the jungle, started mining up some chlorophyte ore, and while I was at it, I decided to challenge the Queen Bee. And this was probably the greatest idea I ever had, because you will not believe what the Queen Bee dropped. Upon clearing up some of the items, I had noticed that the Queen Bee dropped us the Solar Eruption, which is probably the best melee weapon you could get before fighting MoonLord. Anyways, using our newfound power, I traversed my way around the jungle, but after spending 30 minutes searching for the bulb, I decided to come back to spawn in order to summon in all the pre-hard mode bosses at once, just so we could truly gear up before fighting any other boss. For some reason, before I could kill these mobs, all the loot just disappeared. I guess there were just way too many items on the ground and the game decided to just give up. But it's not all bad news. I managed to get myself a laser drill and the Sky Dragon's Fury. I fought the Destroyer one more time because I had a mechanical worm, and I got myself the Kraken Yo-Yo, which is actually a pretty decent weapon that will come in handy. I crafted myself a full set of beetle armor, as if you previously remember, one of the bosses actually managed to drop an expert mode golem bag, which gave us enough beetle husks to craft beetle armor. I found Plantera's bulb pretty quickly. I used this massive explosion to completely nuke myself in arena out of thin air. I summoned in Plantera, and using the solar eruption, we absolutely bullied this boss. We took her out, and I'm gonna be completely honest, she probably dropped the lamest items of all time. We got items such as the Nazar, a ton of leaf blowers, some banners, and absolutely nothing good that's gonna help us in our journey. So curse you, Plantera. I genuinely dislike you very, very much. After defeating Plantera, I wasted no time whatsoever in digging my way into Golem's temple, breaking the lizard altar using my laser drill, and summoning him back at spawn. We took him out extremely quickly, and just as with Plantera, he didn't really drop much of anything good. From Golem, we ended up getting an Uzi, a grappling hook, but nothing that's gonna specifically help us in defeating the MoonLord. Once again, we went straight over to the dungeon and started challenging the lunatic cultist. He didn't put up much of a fight against our solar eruption, and we managed to breeze through this boss. He ended up dropping one of Golem's weapons, which is a stinger, and of course, using your big brain, which I know you have because every single Boio viewer has 200 IQ, you could probably figure out that a stinger is a pre-lunatic cultist weapon. So once again, we got bamboozled. The very first thing I did was start taking out the vortex pillar. Once that was down, I very quickly made my way back to spawn and made my way over to the Stardust pillar. Upon making it there, we ended up dying, but of course, me being the one and true Boio, I took another shot at it because I was not gonna give up that easily. Before we could do any damage, I ended up dying again, but upon my second return, we managed to take out the Stardust pillar. I made my way over to the Nebula pillar, and the brain sucklers spammed me like there was no tomorrow. This made it super easy to take out the shield, but this was absolutely insane. These brain sucklers were giving me head left and right, up to the point where I practically exploded and ended up dying. I managed to take out the Nebula pillar and made my way over to the very final pillar that we had left before we could fight the MoonLord. The solar pillar was a massive challenge. We died over and over again, but I managed managed to push through it, take out the pillar, and upon doing that, I made my way back to spawn. Our screen was shaking, meaning that MoonLord was about to spawn it at any moment. I made myself the tiniest little bootleg arena for MoonLord and proceeded to take on the boss himself. Using the solar eruption, I was giving him every little bit of Boio that I had left in me. We were spamming his eyeballs like there were no tomorrow. I did not want to refight this boss. I wanted to take him out on my first attempt and I was not going to let him kill me. He got me extremely low. I was making my way back to the nurse, and before I could heal, he absolutely folded me. In absolute rage, I crafted myself a vortex beater because that is my go-to weapon anytime I try to defeat MoonLord. I spammed him with the solar eruption once more and tried to take him out with the vortex beater whenever I could. I pulled the dirtiest moves on the MoonLord. I was flying all around him, teleporting back and forth to the nurse in order to heal up, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. We took out both of his eyes and now it was only his core. We spammed his core with the vortex beater until he had absolutely no health left, and we managed to take out the MoonLord, giving us a rain of drops from the sky. Be sure to check out another video like this on screen. Consider subscribing to the channel if you're new. This has been Boio. Peace out.